In late 1953, top executives of the major U.S. cigarette makers met and hired the public relations firm Hill and Knowlton. Their first coordinated answer to the smoking and cancer crisis was not to leave the business. It was to promise science in public and organized doubt. By then, epidemiological reports and laboratory findings had tied cigarette smoking to lung cancer, and mass audience pieces such as Reader's Digest Cancer by the Carton had carried the alarm far beyond medical journals. Faced with collapsing trust, the manufacturers did not withdraw their product. Through Hill and Knowlton, they created the Tobacco Industry Research Committee and prepared a full-page newspaper advertisement published in January 1954 as a frank statement to cigarette smokers. The statement told readers the industry took the health question seriously and would support research into smoking and health. The same structure, documented in the UCSF Truth Tobacco Industry Documents Archive and in Judge Gladys Kessler's factual findings in the 2006 racketeering case United States versus Philip Morris, worked to keep causation publicly unsettled. The committee offered the look of independent inquiry while the companies kept selling cigarettes and defended the open question. The mechanism was simple. A shared public pledge of openness replaced any single company's silence or retreat. Research funding and a research committee became the visible answer. Unsettled causation became the usable one. What this changes is the usual picture of an industry caught off guard. The first mass response to the cancer link was not market exit. It was a managed claim to scientific openness, engineered so nicotine delivery could continue under the label of taking the evidence seriously. Through the early 1950s, major U.S. cigarette brands still ran national campaigns built on physicians. Camel's long-running theme told readers that more doctors smoked Camels than any other cigarette, and rival companies used similar physician endorsement advertising so clinical authority worked as a selling point rather than a warning. The ads ran in mass magazines and traded on the image of the white-coated professional. Surviving print advertisements, preserved in advertising collections and in the UCSF Truth Tobacco Industry Documents Archive, show doctors named as the measure of preference. Leading medical journals, including the Journal of the American Medical Association, continued to accept cigarette advertising into the mid-1950s. Published histories of journal advertising policy record that practice and the later cutoff when those pages closed to the product. The mechanism was ordinary commercial presence inside medicine's own channels. A brand could claim a doctor's choice on a billboard or magazine spread, while the same brand bought space beside clinical material. That dual placement kept the cigarette inside the frame of professional judgment at the same time epidemiological and laboratory reports on lung cancer were accumulating and the manufacturers were building the Tobacco Industry Research Committee. Private evidence could mount. The public face of medicine still carried the smoke. What this changes is any clean timeline in which science recoiled and commerce followed. While executives organized research messaging and a public pledge of openness, ordinary clinical culture, ads aimed at physicians and ads that used them still treated the cigarette as compatible with professional judgment. Authority was already a marketing tool. The product kept its place in medicine's everyday image even as the cancer link hardened elsewhere. Lorillard answered the same cancer scare with a product, not only a pledge. It sold the Kent Micronite filter as a technological shield that trapped tars and irritants before they reached the smoker. For a period in the early to mid-1950s, the filter medium that carried that promise included crocidolite asbestos. The brand's advertising framed Micronite as laboratory-grade protection, finer filtration, a cleaner draw, a modern answer to public fear. The commercial logic was direct. After the frank statement's call for research and reassurance, a visible filter looked like progress a smoker could buy. Product history, later health litigation and peer-reviewed case and occupational literature established that the early Micronite medium used crocidolite, a form of asbestos already recognized as hazardous in industrial settings. Filtration was not an empty slogan. It was a physical path through which smoke and fibers from the medium could move. Workers who handled the filter material faced occupational asbestos exposure documented in that same body of medical writing. The consumer story was safety, while the material science introduced a known carcinogen into the device meant to reduce harm. What this changes is the ordinary meaning of protected. A pack could signal medical-grade reassurance, a reply to the cancer link that sounded like engineering, and still rest the protective claim on a more dangerous filter medium. The industry did not have to abandon nicotine delivery. It could rebuild the cigarette's public face around filtration, while the medium itself added an exposure the safer label did not disclose. Protection on the package and harm in the path were compatible designs. Internal research at the major U.S. cigarette makers treated nicotine delivery as a design variable they could tune. Addiction was not a side effect left alone. Formulators worked impact, free nicotine, and related chemistry, so the cigarette still satisfied when public pressure demanded a milder face. In U.S. v. Philip Morris, Judge Kessler's 2006 findings of fact rest on decades of internal documents showing the company studied how much nicotine reached the smoker, in what chemical form, and how quickly it hit long before they admitted addiction in public. Later FDA and public health reviews of tobacco product chemistry reached the same conclusion from the same paper trail. Blend choice, processing, and additives were used to keep pharmacological effect intact. Popular shorthand about a single ammonia recipe is often overprecise about any one formula, and the court record does not require that slogan. The litigated point is broader and firmer. Filters and a calmer taste could sit on the outside while nicotine punch was maintained on the inside. Delivery was specified, measured, and adjusted, not left to the leaf. What this changes is the ordinary meaning of the safer cigarette. After the cancer scare, the industry answered fear in the mouthpiece and on the pack with filtration and milder branding. It answered the same fear in the blend, so the smoker stayed hooked under a calmer label. Protection was the public story. Nicotine delivery remained a private product variable. Light and low-tar cigarettes carried pack numbers certified by standardized smoking machine protocols, the Federal Trade Commission method long used for official tar and nicotine ratings. Those machine figures did not equal lower intake for many real smokers. The machines drew fixed puffs on a fixed schedule. Human smokers do not. When a cigarette is designed to deliver less nicotine under that protocol, people adjust. National Cancer Institute tobacco control monographs and U.S. Surgeon General reports describe the pattern called compensatory smoking. Deeper inhalation, more puffs per cigarette, longer draws, and, on ventilated light designs, fingers or lips that partly block the tiny air vents meant to dilute the smoke stream. The rating method assumed the machine's puff and did not account for that behavior. As a result, the numbers printed on many light packs systematically understated tar and nicotine exposure for a large share of the market that bought them. Advertising and branding still presented the lower yields as reduced risk, another public answer to the cancer scare that left the cigarette's pharmacological job intact. The milder label and the filtration story sat on the outside. The need for nicotine, already treated inside the industry as an adjustable variable, sat underneath. What this changes is the ordinary reading of the pack. The tar and nicotine ratings looked like measured harm reduction. The behavior the product invited often canceled the claim those numbers appeared to make. Light was a machine result. Intake was a human one. In April 1994, the chief executives of the major U.S. cigarette companies testified under oath before Representative Henry Waxman's subcommittee that nicotine is not addictive. The hearing was televised. The denial was the public line. That line did not match the internal record. For decades, the same firms had treated nicotine delivery as a design variable, impact, free nicotine, and related chemistry adjusted so the product still satisfied when filters, milder taste, and lower machine yields were added for the market. The Waxman hearing captured the sworn posture at the moment the documents were beginning to surface in large volume. Releases through the 1990s, many now in the UCSF Truth Tobacco Industry Documents Archive, showed research, marketing, and public relations work aimed at keeping addictiveness and causation unsettled in public view. The Department of Justice filed a civil racketeering case. In 2006, in U.S. v. Philip Morris, Judge Gladys Kessler's liability opinion found that the major manufacturers had run a multi-decade coordinated campaign of deception about smoking's harms and about nicotine's addictiveness. The opinion placed the research committees, the safer product claims, and the long denial of addiction inside one enterprise. What this changes is the story of gradual enlightenment. The Frank Statement and the Tobacco Industry Research Committee, physician ads, asbestos-bearing micronite protection, engineered nicotine, light labels built on machine ratings, and the 1994 oaths were not a string of separate mistakes that truth finally corrected. They were successive public answers to the same commercial problem. After the early 1950s cancer scare, keep the customer addicted while the package and the evidence environment said otherwise. Doubt was not a delay before honesty. Redesign for safety was not a bridge to less harm. Together, they were the strategy that let nicotine delivery outlive the scare. The scare became a label problem. The addiction remained the product.